a sneak peek at Velocity's new series, Iron Resurrection.
I'm Joe Martin. I've been building cars and bikes since I was just a little kid. Here at Martin Brothers, we're always on the hunt for the next coolest project. That's where my wife Amanda and my buddy Shag come in.
One season they were there. The next, they were all gone. Familiar faces gradually disappeared from Iron Resurrection without warning, leaving fans wondering what had happened behind the scenes. Rumors spread, speculation exploded, but clear answers were hard to find. So why did so many cast members leave? And what was really happening inside one of television's most popular custom car shops?
Are you kidding me? Look at this place.
Vans, cars, nostalgia everywhere. It's a picker stream.
To turn buckets of rust into road art,
Pretty awesome, man.
it takes money smarts,
My main job is to make sure that we turn a profit.
The cheaper the better.
street smarts,
I get to haggle for the best price, or as I like to call it, shaggle.
Join us as we uncover what happened to the Iron Resurrection cast and why some exits were far more complicated than fans ever imagined. The show that built a family and then watched it fracture. Iron Resurrection premiered on Velocity Channel on April 13, 2016, built around a deceptively simple premise. Joe Martin, a quiet, extremely skilled fabricator who had already won Discovery Channel's Biker Build-Off competition and spent years before that working as a custom machinery designer at Monster Garage in Austin, ran Martin Brothers Customs in Johnson City, Texas, with his wife Amanda. His best friend Jason "Shag" Arrington was the talker, the deal maker, the personality whose gift for marketing and whose speed with words had earned him the nickname the fastest mouth in the South. And surrounding them was a crew of welders, painters, upholstery specialists, and mechanics who collectively turned vehicles that belonged in junkyards into things that stopped traffic at car shows across Texas and beyond. In the first season alone, the show drew over 1 million viewers per episode. That number held and grew. By the time Season 3 was airing, Iron Resurrection had become one of the most consistent performers on a network that had stiff competition from other automotive restoration shows. It wasn't just gearheads watching. Regular people who had never held a socket wrench in their lives were tuning in because the chemistry between the cast members felt genuinely real, in a way that most reality television spends enormous amounts of money trying to fake and almost never successfully achieves. The crew wasn't performing for the camera in the way that most reality show participants perform. Phil Cato was doing real upholstery work with real skill. His custom hot rod interiors were genuinely impressive pieces of craft that required years of expertise to produce. Javier "Shorty" Ponce was painting with the precision of someone who had spent decades developing an eye for color and finish that most shops couldn't replicate. Pampa was himself, easily spooked, frequently the target of practical jokes involving fireworks and sudden loud noises, and genuinely funny in a way that had nothing to do with writing or direction. Shag was always talking at the speed of a man who had spent his career in marketing for companies like Red Bull and Encompass International before the cameras arrived. And Joe was in the corner with a piece of metal and a vision, making things that were physically and technically impossible look effortless. The friendship between these people was real. It had been built over years before a single camera appeared in the shop, and the television format was capturing something that already existed rather than manufacturing something for the audience's benefit. That authenticity was the show's greatest asset. It was also what made everything that followed so difficult to watch. Because when things started falling apart inside the Iron Resurrection world, they fell apart quietly, and the silence from the people involved made the whole thing feel far more dramatic than any of them intended. Cato, the man who walked away. Fame for his wife. Phil Cato was one of the most skilled people in that shop. and everyone in the shop knew it. Custom automotive upholstery, the kind that goes into a show-quality hot rod restoration, is a craft that takes years to develop properly, and that most restoration shops outsource to specialists because they can't produce it themselves at that level. Kato could produce it himself, on site, to a standard that matched or exceeded what dedicated upholstery shops were charging clients thousands of dollars to achieve. Season after season, the interiors he created for vehicles that had started life as decades-old rust heaps were the finishing touch that took a good build to something genuinely extraordinary. When Season 4 premiered in 2020 and Kato wasn't in it, the immediate assumption from large sections of the fan base was drama. Rumors started circulating almost immediately. A falling out with Joe, a dispute with producers, something that had happened behind the scenes that the network was trying to keep quiet. The internet has a reliable tendency to fill unexplained absences with the most dramatic possible explanation, and the Iron Resurrection fan community was not immune to that tendency. The truth, when it eventually came out, was something that said more about who Phil Kato actually was as a person than any dramatic backstory could have said. His wife had received a significant career opportunity in Atlanta, Georgia. A real opportunity, the kind that changes the direction of a professional life, and that you don't turn down when it arrives. And Kato, without hesitation and without negotiating a reduced shooting schedule, or asking his wife to manage the transition alone while he stayed on television, packed up their lives in Texas, and moved to Atlanta to support her completely. He didn't make a public announcement. He simply made the decision that his wife's career mattered more than his continued television presence, and he moved. He set up Kato's custom upholstery at Fuller Moto in Atlanta, took his skills to a new city, and built a new client base from scratch, in a market that had no particular reason to know who he was. The show eventually addressed the absence on Facebook, confirming that the departure was entirely amicable, and that Kato and the Martin Brothers crew remained close. The official statement included the words, "We are all still close friends that respect and support each other's decisions." By 2025, Phil Kato had built a thriving business in Atlanta, maintained nearly 40,000 followers on Instagram, where he regularly documented his custom work, and had been featured in CK Trucks magazine. He had turned out to be exactly who he appeared to be on television, a skilled, genuinely decent person who decided, when it came to a real choice, that his wife mattered more than his screen time. But what happened to the other man who disappeared at the same time was driven by something completely different, something that had nothing to do with a career opportunity. Shorty, the grandfather who chose family over fame. The way Javier "Shorty" Ponce disappeared from Iron Resurrection was shocking and interesting at the same time. Shorty had been with Martin Bros Customs since before the cameras arrived. He was part of the shop's actual operational foundation, a painter with the kind of expertise that comes only from years of dedicated practice in environments where quality is non-negotiable. His work was the visual payoff of every build. The moment when something that had spent years sitting in a field or a garage became something that made people stop and stare and reach for their wallets. When he vanished before Season 4, the speculation was identical to what had surrounded Kato's departure. Something must have happened, something the production wasn't willing to say directly. The show's social media eventually confirmed the real reason. Shorty had become a grandfather. His child had had a child, and Javier "Shorty" Ponce had decided what his response to that was going to be. He relocated to Dallas to be close to his family and scaled down his painting work deliberately, serving local clients he could choose on his own terms rather than operating within the production demands of a television schedule. Iron Resurrection confirmed there was no bad blood between Shorty and anyone connected to the production. The official statement closed with words that everyone in the shop were still close friends who respected and supported each other's decisions. By 2026, Javier "Shorty" Ponce was living exactly the life he had chosen. Painting for clients he selected, close to the family he had prioritized, present in the way that actually mattered to him. The cameras had been gone for years. He didn't appear to miss them even slightly. And then there was Pampa, the man whose departure was handled differently from everyone else's, and whose years of public silence about it told a story that was more interesting than any explanation could have been. Pampa, the silence that spoke louder than a statement. When Kato left, he explained himself through the show's official channels. When Shorty left, the production explained for him. When Pampa disappeared from Iron Resurrection ahead of Season 4, nobody said anything useful. Fans flooded his Instagram asking what had happened. He didn't reply to any of it. The show's social media addressed Kato and Shorty's departures in its Facebook statement, but conspicuously made no mention of Pampa's absence in the same breath. He simply wasn't there anymore, and the silence from every possible direction made it loud. What filled the vacuum was the most persistent rumor in Iron Resurrection's history, that Pampa had finally reached the end of his patience with being the designated target of every practical joke in the shop. For 3 seasons, the crew had used Pampa's easily startled nature as a recurring entertainment source. Fireworks set off near him without warning, sudden loud noises, physical pranks designed to trigger the large, immediate reaction that was reliably funny on camera. Pampa always appeared to take it completely in stride. He always laughed. But the question that commentators and fans kept returning to in the silence of his absence was simple. Did he actually find it as funny as he appeared to after 4 seasons of being the shop's primary comic target? The most widely accepted explanation was that Pampa had burned out, that 4 demanding seasons of physical work, production schedules, and an on-screen role had exhausted him in ways he chose not to publicly discuss. But Pampa's return for Season 7 in 2024 complicated that completely. He came back. His return was treated as a major event, one of the season's highlights, and the Season 7 finale was literally titled Pampa's Harley Fat Boy Surprise Part 2, centering the entire closing episode of the show's television run on the man who had been gone from it for 4 seasons. But even Pampa's mysterious exit was less unexpected than what happened to Manny, the crew member who was there in the beginning and vanished so completely that most fans forget to include him in conversations about who left the show. Manny and Mike Z, the departures nobody talked about. Iron Resurrection's public narrative around cast departures has always focused primarily on Kato, Shorty, and Pampa, because those were the names that fans could most easily attach to memorable on-screen moments. But the show also lost Manny and Michael Zabanik, known throughout the shop as Mike Z, and the way those departures happened without public ceremony revealed something important about how Martin Brothers Customs actually functioned as a working business versus how it presented itself on television. Manny was part of the original crew and appeared across the show's first 3 seasons as a welder and fabricator. His role was less individually prominent than the crew members who drove the show's comedy or its visible craft showcase moments. He was part of the shop's operational backbone rather than one of its on-screen personalities. His departure as part of the same Season 4 reshuffling that saw Shorty, Kato, and Pampa all disappear simultaneously was addressed only obliquely. Unlike Kato and Shorty, there was no specific official statement explaining Manny's absence. The fact that 4 people all made the same decision to step back from the production within the same period before a single season says something that the individual explanations for each departure don't fully capture on their own. 4 experienced professionals all at the same point in their relationship with a successful television show, all simultaneously deciding that the arrangement no longer fit their lives, points toward something systemic about what the production was requiring of them. Whether that was the physical demands of filming in the Texas climate, the time requirements of maintaining both a real working shop and a television production schedule simultaneously, or something about how the show's approach had shifted. The simultaneous departure of a significant portion of the original crew is a data point that deserves more attention than the narrative of individual personal decisions has always given it. Michael Zabanick's departure from the show came later in its run, and his explanation was the same as Shorty's had been at a different stage of life. He wanted to spend more time with his family. Mike Z had been a welder and mechanic whose fabrication work was exceptional by any standard. He stepped away from the production cameras and stepped back into a life that television had been pulling him away from for longer than he wanted to continue allowing. What both of these departures share with every other exit from Iron Resurrection is the complete and total absence of anything resembling a scandal. No legal trouble, no dramatic confrontations that became public, no terminated friendships or burned bridges, just people who decided, at different points in their working relationship with a television show, that the arrangement had run its course. And the show itself eventually made the same decision, not with a dramatic announcement, but with the same quiet, deliberate certainty that had characterized every departure that preceded it. What the show's end revealed about everyone in it. The story of Iron Resurrection's cast isn't really a story about individual departures. It's a story about what happens when a group of genuinely talented, genuinely likable people get swept up in the machinery of television production, give it 7 seasons and nearly a decade of their working lives, and then have to figure out who they are when that machinery stops and the cameras go home. Joe Martin confirmed in July 2025 that Martin Brothers Customs had officially wrapped their time with Motor Trend TV after 7 seasons. The network's streaming platform, Motor Trend Plus, had collapsed as part of a broader industry restructuring, with its content migrating to Discovery Plus and Max. The infrastructure that had supported the show for nearly a decade was gone. And rather than wait for a network rescue or pursue another traditional television deal, Joe made the call to go fully independent, moving the shop's content entirely to YouTube and social media, where they could document builds without network timelines, without executive oversight, and without the compromises that television relationships inevitably require. This decision was, in many ways, the most revealing thing Joe Martin had done in 7 years of television. The language he used when announcing it, describing the independence as liberating, talking about the absence of restrictions, implied that something about the previous network arrangement had not fully been the freedom that the show's relaxed, authentic-feeling episodes had suggested. The show had looked free. The business reality underneath it had apparently felt considerably more constrained. Shag Arrington remained one of the show's most consistent presences throughout its entire run, appearing from the first episode in 2016 through the Season 7 finale in March 2024. He had built his other ventures, YourBikerGang.com, Astro Red Industries, alongside his television work, and by 2026 was continuing those businesses while staying connected to the automotive community through car shows and active social media. Amanda Martin had spent the post-show period leaning into causes she had quietly cared about throughout the show's run. Her animal rescue work, supporting Paws Shelter and Southern California Pit Bull Rescue, became more prominent after the show ended. She and Joe continued running Martin Brothers Customs in Johnson City, Texas, taking builds, posting content independently on YouTube, and operating a cabin Airbnb alongside the shop. What the end of Iron Resurrection ultimately exposed was something the show had always been about: in ways that only became fully visible in retrospect. The vehicles the crew restored were objects that had been abandoned, forgotten, or left to decay, things that had real value that people had stopped being able to see. The show's entire premise was that these things deserved a second chance, that the right hands and the right vision could find what was still worth saving in something that looked like it was past saving. The crew that made that show turned out to operate by the same principles in their personal lives. When the production became something that no longer fit who they needed to be, as fathers, grandfathers, husbands, independent business owners, they found ways to walk away without burning what they had built. Kato kept his friendship with the shop and built something new in Atlanta. Shorty kept his relationships and built something quieter near his grandchildren. Pampa stayed silent for years, then came back for one more season when it felt right, and then the show ended with his name in the title of the finale. Joe Martin walked away from a network deal to go independent rather than compromise on what the shop and the content needed to be. None of them died. None of them went to jail. What happened to the Iron Resurrection cast is simultaneously less dramatic and more interesting than that headline would suggest. A group of people who built something genuinely real, gave it everything it required for 7 seasons, and then made the decision to put their actual lives first when the television machine finally stopped serving them. The shop is still open in Johnson City, Texas. The YouTube channel is still uploading builds. The work is still happening. The difference is that now it happens on Joe Martin's terms, without a network deciding what gets filmed and what gets cut. Do you think the Iron Resurrection crew made the right calls, walking away when they did? And now that Joe Martin has gone fully independent, do you think what he builds on YouTube will ever match what they had on cable when all those personalities were in the same shop at the same time? Share your thoughts with us in the comments section. Remember to like, share, and subscribe for more. Also, click the next video showing on your screen. You will enjoy it.